Don't know. In the spirit of respect, authenticity, and reconciliation, the town of Slave Lake honors and acknowledges that we are situated on the traditional lands of Sawridge First Nation within Treaty 8 territory, home to Indigenous, Métis, and Inuit peoples who have occupied these lands since time immemorial. Good evening, everyone. Councillor Adams.
Make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Any further discussion? Call to question those in favor. Okay, and if everyone tonight, because we have one counselor joining us via Zoom, if you can hold your hands up a little bit longer so that, because I'm slow on the uptake there. Thank you. That is carried. Thank you. Anyone want to approve the minutes of the October? So Councillor Hughes.
I would love to do that. A motion to approve the minutes from the October 17th regular meeting of council as presented.
Any further discussion? Call the question, those in favor. And that is carried. Thank you. Okay, Lori, you are up first.
Upon closing on October 23rd, we received 7 proposals from Baristo and Associates Engineering and Surveys, Dillon Consulting, Green Space Alliance, ISL Engineering and Land Services, McElhaney Municipal Planning Services, and WSP. The proposals were reviewed in detail by Joanna, Raymond, and myself. A discussion was held with the CAO with respect to the results of the review and evaluation of the proposals. So a little bit of the review criteria. So understanding of the project scope was 10%. This criterion was used to determine how many of the proponents understood the project scope. It was determined by the proponents' ability to describe the relationship between the MDP and the LUB and the importance of community input with respect to vision and mission, as well as a policy and objective statements in the MDP. Finally, the understanding of how the MDP informs the development of the regulations within the land use bylaw. All 7 of the proponents demonstrated a good understanding of the project scope, with 4 demonstrating an excellent understanding. Under profile was 40%, and that included company profile for 5%, suitability for the project at 5%, previous relevant experience 20%, and references 10%. This criterion was used to determine several factors regarding the proponent's suitability to undertake the project. The company profile portion required the proponent to provide information regarding the company, such as who they were, how long they've been providing planning services, the type of services they provide, their staff makeup and complement, etc. The sustainability for the project portion required the proponent to provide more detailed information on the planning services they provide. Previous relevant experience portion required the proponent to provide information on past projects that were the same or similar to the RFP. So new rewrites of NDPs and LUBs. More points were awarded for proponents who completed the same plans recently, plans for municipalities of like size and demographic, and plans prepared for Alberta municipalities. The references portion required proponents to provide a list of references from other municipalities. 3 of the proponents scored high in this area, with Green Space Alliance scoring the highest. Proposed work methodology 25%. This criterion was used to determine several factors, including the type and number of public engagement opportunities that would be utilized to inform the public of the plans and solicit feedback. Which plan would be undertaken first, and how the policy and objective statements of the MDP would inform the regulations in the land use bylaw. Issues that had already been identified by the proponent with the MDP and the LUB that would be addressed as part of their proposed work, as well as preparation of a draft plan, number of reviews of each draft in preparation of the final plans, risk analysis and risk management plans, etc. 3 proponents scored high in this section, all with the same score. Schedule was 10%. This criterion was used to determine the amount of time it would take to undertake all aspects of the project, as well as a project completion date. All proponents provided a project schedule that saw completion no later than June 30th, 2025, which was the date specified in the RFP. Two of the proponents provided a project schedule that saw completion in early 2025. All proponents scored the same on this criterion, as they all proposed to complete on or before the deadline. Fees 15%. This criterion was used to determine if the fees suggested by the proponent were appropriate with respect to the scope of work required. 6 of the 7 proponents provided a fee schedule that was appropriate in consideration of the scope of work. 3 of the 7 proponents provided a fee schedule that was beyond the project budget of $180,000, and 3 provided a fee schedule that was within the budget and appropriate considering the scope of project. Overall, every proponent satisfied the mandatory requirements of the RFP. Companies such as Green Space Alliance provided a comprehensive public engagement process, a clear understanding of the project scope, detailed and comprehensive work plan, and fees that were within the budget. So the planning department has undertaken that comprehensive and thorough review of all the proposals. One proponent, Green Space Alliance, scored the highest in the evaluations and has provided the most comprehensive public engagement process and thorough work plan. Further, but the budget being proposed is not unreasonable, so not too low, considering the work that's required, and yet is well within the proposed project budget. Finally, the planning department and the project manager have worked with Green Space Alliance on several other projects, such as the Downtown and Main Street Area Structure Plan and Urban Design Handbook, Fire Smart regulations for the land use bylaw, and the Rennie Hall Plaza update redesign. All of these projects have been on budget, completed on time, and the final product was very good. Based on the proposals received, the score assigned based on the evaluation criteria above and past experience working with this proponent, the planning department recommends council award the rewrite of the municipal development plan and land use bylaw project to Green Space Alliance for the amount of $119,369 plus GST. Any questions?
Councilor Ferguson.
So just a couple questions here. So for the benefit of the public, can you just explain what these are, why they're important, and why they're important to keep up to date and current?
Sure. The municipal development plan is basically the top of the hierarchy of plans for municipalities. So it's the overarching plan, and what it the MDP does is capture the vision of the community, citizens of the community and council, in terms of where they see Slave Lake now and where they want to see Slave Lake grow to be. And it establishes policy and objective statements to move the town as a whole to the future aspirations with different policy and objective statements. Now, those statements also inform how the regulations are written within the land use bylaw. We are required under the Municipal Government Act to have a municipal development plan. So we should have one, and we should be reviewing them every 5 to 10 years to make sure that they're current and that they meet with what the current vision is that the community has for the municipality. The land use bylaw is really the regulation portion, and it really controls how development is undertaken in the town of Slave Lake. So it establishes land use districts, uses that are appropriate for those land use districts, and then regulations with respect to setbacks and parking requirements, et cetera. And again, those regulations should align with the policy statements in the municipal development plan.
Councilor Adams.
Just a couple clarifying questions as well on that. When was the last update on our MDP?
2007 was the last time it was rewritten.
Okay.
Okay, and then as far as the land use bylaw rewrite, is it a full rewrite from scratch? Is it taking what we have in place and just making sure there's no contradictions? Or to what scale are we taking this?
The land use bylaw is getting a complete overhaul. Both documents are getting a complete look at and reviewed from top to bottom. And the idea is to try to modernize the land use bylaw as well as make it a little bit easier to navigate. Yeah.
Counselor Moellem.
I was wondering, is there any criterion for contractors being local? Like, does that have anything to do on the wait side?
No.
No?
No, and I think part of that is because we've never had a local contractor that can provide those planning services.
I'm not talking about this specifically, but I'm talking
Oh.
through the whole procurement process.
That's a good question. Jeff may have a better answer for you with respect to other.
Yeah, so there definitely are different rules as it relates to procurement based on what's being procured and the value of that procurement. So our project manager, Kush, has presented a policy on that probably before you've sat in the chair, but within the last year here, updating our purchasing policy and the requirements too. But essentially, long story short, the governing act or the trade agreement that we are required to abide by basically says no one will be discriminated against based on jurisdiction. So meaning that local on large contracts, a local contractor isn't factored in. On smaller contract, there's a small provision or an ability to have a little bit of leeway, but for large contracts that go to tender, that is not a factor that can be included in there. So it's meant to keep the playing field even. It's also meant to allow our local contractors who are bidding on work outside of Slave Lake and in other municipalities an equal chance to get work there as well. So it benefits everybody in the same breath.
Counselor Hughes.
I will make a motion. I move that council award the contract for the rewrite of the municipal development plan and the land use bylaw to Green Space Alliance for the amount of $119,369 plus GST.
Okay, Counselor Adams.
Just actually one last question on this as well. With GSA, and they did our last downtown piece in the urban design handbook.
Yep.
When we went through that, did we do a postmortem on that? I'm just wondering how effective was what they did compared to the product we got to what we actually implemented? Like, are we happy with this?
Well, I thought it was a very solid plan. I think if there was any hindrances is that sometimes in the process, you don't get the buy-in or you have it at the beginning of the project and you don't have it at the end. So I think one of the biggest hindrances with the downtown plan is some of the things that were proposed weren't things that were supported by some of the downtown businesses. They didn't like some of those proposals. So it has created some issues, and there's things within the downtown plan that we're not enforcing. And we sort of sat silent on them because they weren't favorable for some of the businesses in the core. But overall, it was an excellent, and it was a great public process. There was a lot of public consultation, focus group sessions, steering committees, lots of time spent interacting and engagement with the public on it. And it is a good, solid plan. It actually won a couple of design awards from the planning community. So, but these things can, these are some of the risks that go with doing plans.
Thanks.
Is there any further discussion? Oh.
No,
Counselor Moellem.
just a comment. I see the evaluation that we have in the package for Green Space Alliance. Is it possible to see what all of them, just like a little evaluation to see how close all the bidders were? Or to see that?
Typically, our process is we just present the information administration will evaluate the contract and present information on the winner and the recommendation. Typically, we don't provide the evaluation publicly, sometimes we will provide individual feedback if requested to some of the bidders, depending on what the nature of the project is, of where they may have lost points or where they may, where they didn't meet up in terms of comparison to others. But typically for the purpose of awarding a contract, we just provide the kind of the short version summary of here's who administration has reviewed, here's why we're recommending the contract be awarded to one place. So it would be outside of our normal scope of how we deal with things. Yeah.
Okay, motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you, Lori.
No problem. Thank you. So the next report I have is the 2024 priorities on the action plan. for the downtown and Main Street area plan. So the purpose of this report is for council to consider which 2024 projects they would like to undertake for the downtown plan. So on October 10th, 2017, we adopted the downtown and Main Street area plan and the urban design handbook, and it was adopted by council. The consultants also included an action plan as part of the downtown plan, which outlines projects and initiatives to move the plan forward. Annually, administration prepares a report to council where council may select projects they wish to pursue in the upcoming year. So I've attached the next few pages outline the different actions under the plan as well. On page 20 and 21 are the action plan taken out of the area structure plan. So under the regulatory policy framework of the downtown plan, there's a festival and events policy. And this is the town should develop a festival and events policy related guidelines to attract potential tourism and service providers. This was assigned to the Community Services Department for 2023. And I didn't get an update on this, but it's on their radar. So I would anticipate council will be receiving that in the next 6 months or so. I didn't get a timeline on that. The planning department did create a special event guideline document. However, it doesn't deal with festival and events planning. It really has to do with how and when you need a special event permit. So it's a separate document. There was also talk about an outdoor boulevard encroachment agreements. This was selected in 2023 for the planning department. I haven't completed it, but I anticipate completing it in this winter. So it will be ready to go for the spring. Downtown and Main Street Design Review Framework. This is a design review panel composed of local professionals that can play an important role in improving the quality of design throughout the proposed development in the downtown. So this was in respect to establishing a committee that would use the urban design handbook when reviewing development applications to ensure that they met with the design elements of the area structure plan. This action hasn't been assigned to anything, to anybody yet. It hasn't been undertaken. So the ones with the red updates are the ones that have been assigned or we have updates on. So the rest of these have not been undertaken. So under studies, there's a viability of an urban campground study and tax incentive exemption program, or transportation impact analysis. And I gave you a little bit of information on what that is. Under catalyst projects, there's downtown tactile placemaking. And this is unique placemaking features that help foster a sense of place ownership and build communities around interesting and unique places, such as branding, which would assist in fostering the vibrancy envisioned in the area structure plan. And it goes a little bit more into crosswalk art and pavement colors and banners and things like that. Then downtown banners and art poles and artistic pavement is another one. Linear park along Main Street West and a linear park along Main Street East. Then downtown entrance features, which would be welcoming markers and unique gateways. In 2023, council selected additional downtown signage as a priority, and the project manager is working on that, actively working on that. Rennie Hall Plaza redesigned. So in 2022, this redesign and updating of Rennie Hall Plaza took place with the redesign elements, and then the actual construction work has been completed. Under incentive programs, we have the facade improvement program. The Community Futures Lesser Slave Lake has launched its beautification loan program in cooperation with the town of Slave Lake, which fulfills this action. There's also a development incentive program and a patio program. Under advocacy, we have downtown branding. In 2021, council looked at this and they put it on hold until the community branding had been completed, at which time council may want to consider taking up branding for the downtown area. There's the Downtown and Main Street investment brochure and downtown festivals and events. In 2023, council selected this option to increase the use of Rennie Hall Plaza. And this was assigned to community services. I don't have an update on where they are on that one at this point. And then, of course, there's downtown markets, and then other partnerships, we have downtown commercial institutional anchor, downtown north expansion, E.G. Wallstrom School Site Redevelopment. The High Prairie School Division has indicated they're not interested in partnering with the town to develop this area as commercial. They want to keep it for their school, but they are interested if the town would like to pursue it in a passive recreation lease for a strip of land along Main Street. That could be used for something, but at this point, we haven't pursued that. And then there's entrance public art visitor facility. So the relation to the strategic plan, so under the economic health pillar, the town will implement the downtown plan through phases to revitalize the area and increase investment in our community. Planning department is requesting or recommending council choose a few tasks from the action plan from that can be undertaken in 2024. And we're not making, we didn't make any recommendations on which ones you might want to choose. That was it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Big report there. And up, Councillor Ferguson.
Just a quick question. Where are we at with our Rennie Hall Plaza main art piece?
I believe that's maybe Jeff has it, but I remember Kush
That
saying that's close.
If I recall correctly, Kush had brought that to council with the conceptual design, so I believe that was. I believe there was a budget allocation or for that as well, so I believe it's in the
Works.
planning process or in the
I spoke,
construction.
yeah, I
process.
spoke to him in the last couple of weeks and he said that they were waiting on some materials like on the construction piece and then preparing the site for installation.
Okay.
So it was just a matter of.
It's in,
waiting on
the process is underway. I
Process is
just-
underway and I ensured that the giant fish.
Yeah, I believe
Is
that
not
change was
happening?
made.
Giant's fish didn't make the sign, so I was curious as well. I was curious if we would have it coming in before there was a significant amount of snow and he was uncertain at that
Yeah,
time, but it is
thank
in the
you.
works. Councillor Adams.
Overall, I'm not really comfortable making a decision one way or the other on this as to what we want to do. I would like to give an opportunity to administration on a couple of our priorities, ones that we would like you to look into a little further. I know there's a couple that I'm interested in. I would like us to discuss or at least peek into the box on continuing with that downtown pavement piece, what that's going to look like, what our long-term setting aside money to do that, because we've got 2/3 of this done or half this done, what it would cost and how many more years to phase it in to get the rest of the downtown piece done. I'd like us to look into that. The other ones that I was kind of interested on, as I've mentioned before, I really like the sidewalk painting piece. I would like us to look further into that as far as partnerships, either with local communities or schools, in order to move that forward. The investment brochure I was interested in, and the other one that I would really like us to look into is that the possibility and explore the lease of the E.G. Wallstrom strip of it there, whether it's, my idea was some sort of skating park where it would be like a walking path, what turns into a skating path in the winter, something like that. I've seen that in Spruce Grove. Thought it was fantastic. And those were the ones that really jumped out that I think we should look at into further.
I'm in agreement with Steve here on some of them. I would like to see maybe it comes with capital budgeting and further council discussions. I don't know if we'll necessarily all have an agreement for you here tonight, because obviously there's capital budget discussions to be had here. I do like the idea of looking at a phased approach or what that's going to look like. Maybe we don't do a piece next year, but in the next couple years, in order to essentially finalize more of that downtown rebranding project. I also like the idea of the downtown tactile place marketing. I think that we have with our banners and with our feature art piece that's coming to Rennie Hall Plaza and a few of those other things with the Slave Lake Regional Arts Council and with the town, we've created photographable moments around town. And I think if we can expand that to some of the pieces, such as the crosswalk art or pavement and some street furniture, that we can create that those picturable moments that I think would be very helpful with regards to, you know, the downtown events that are held throughout the year and things like that. I think the idea of a skating park is cool. I don't know if that would work, but I do like the ideas and kind of putting this forth in a manageable way. So I do think we need to have some further capital budget discussions on that as to where we want the dollars to go. But I think there's some really good opportunities here. Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, I would say that I'm actually of the same sentiment there as well. I really would like to explore the piece about E.G. Wallstrom specifically. That's been something that's been kind of on the radar for a while. So that's one of my larger ones as well. I also agree with the tactile placemaking too. I just think it kind of fits in with what we've already done. And of course, I do think it makes sense for us to explore, you know, a phased approach to getting the rest of the surface area and things kind of redone there on Main Street to that and kind of thing. So I would appreciate more of a long-term plan on this one, but lots of great ideas here that I hope we can see to fruition. Thanks.
Councillor Moale.
Yep, I agree with everyone on here. I do like the idea of a tax incentive for businesses as well. I think I commend the town of Slave Lake and Community Futures working on the beautification program. I think there's a lot of really good benefits as a property owner myself to going down that road, but I would love to see you know, some more talks on what some tax incentives an exemption program would look like. And I also think that the biggest potential we have is probably our relationship with E.G. Wallstrom on that strip. There's a whole number of things we could do there for summer and in winter. So I think that's definitely one that I would like to chase.
Councillor Adams.
Just comment on that. I noticed it wasn't in this report, but I believe we've already passed one for an incentive on development. So if you're expanding your business, you get a tax break on your property taxes if you've gone over a certain percentage and whatever else. So that part's been added in, which is nice. And like you said, the Community Future Partnership on there. And that being said, I would like to make a motion that we accept this as information and go from there.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Councillor
Is it capital, right?
Yes.
We revisited a capital budget. Yeah, and then we
Okay,
can make
sure.
a recommendation.
Add that in.
there. Okay, any further discussion from there? Friendly amendment? Okay, call to question those in favor. And that is carried. Thank you.
Okay, my last report here, it's a development permit application for accessory building shed. So the purpose of this report is for council to consider an application for the development of an accessory building shed in the CDC council direct control. The applicant is the town of Slave Lake and it's for the homeless shelter at plan 9923252 lot 1. And because the zoning is CDC, any application for any development needs to come before council. So in October, the landowner rezoned the lands from institutional to CDC to allow a shelter, and a development permit was issued for that. I've given you the regulations out of the land use bylaw with respect to accessory structures and the CDC zone. As I said, the applicant received a previous approval to build the temporary shelter. In the process of setting up, they realized that they would need some additional storage and they would like to place an 8-foot by 10-foot shed on the site. We really have no concerns with this issue. We're giving you a motion with conditions that are listed that would guide the development of or placement of that shed. So the motion is move that council approve the development permit to permit the accessory building use shed in the CDC on lot 1 plan 922 located at 901 Caribou Trail Northwest until May 31st, 2023. So when the shelter comes off, the shed would go off with it. And then there's conditions there that would be issued as part of the development permit.
Councillor Adams.
I honestly don't see any problem with this whatsoever. So I'll move straight to a motion. We move that council approves development permit 82.10.23 to permit the accessory building and use shed in the CDC Council Director Control District on Lot 1, Plan 9923252, located at 901 Caribou Trail Northwest until May 31st, 2023.
And could I just, one friendly amendment, it should say subject to the following conditions.
Subject to conditions that
Yeah.
I really do not want to
Read.
read 2, 3,
Thank you.
3, 4 pages.
Yeah.
Subject to those presented in the agenda. Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Do we have any further discussion? Okay, call the question. Those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lori. Roland.
Good evening, your worship and members of council. I have two borrowing bylaws before you tonight. The first borrowing bylaw number 21/2023. I've just, for the background there, I've just kind of quoted the sections of the MGA stating how municipality can borrow and should borrow. We'll just move right into the discussion. As per motion 407/23, administration has proceeded with an offer to purchase land and building for two parcels within the town of Slave Lake. In order to purchase the land and the building, the town will be borrowing funds. The funding needed for parcel 1 is $685,000. Interest rates from the province range from 5.5% to 6% currently and are subject to change at the time of borrowing. Other rates administration had looked at through other financial institutions range from 6% to 8%. The total estimated cost to borrow $685,000 from the province totals $903,000, $685,000 in principal payments and $218,000 in interest payments over a 10-year period, with annual repayments estimated at $90,000 a year. The available debt limit for the town of Slave Lake as of December 31st, 2022 was $23 million. So there is definitely sufficient room within our debt limit to proceed. Provincial applications for borrowing are required to be in by January 31st, 2024, with an issue date of March 15th, 2024. Prior to receiving funding from the province, administration will be bringing back an interim financing borrowing bylaw to temporarily borrow funds from a bank until provincial funding is received. After first reading, administration will advertise the bylaw. In accordance with our advertising bylaw, administration will be advertising on the town's website for a period of 14 days. After the 14-day advertising period, there's a 15-day petition period in which residents have the opportunity to petition the bylaw. After this period, council may give the borrowing bylaw second and third reading. And then attached to this report is a copy of borrowing bylaw 21/23 and the advertisement that we'll be posting.
Councillor Adams.
A couple questions for you. And this is my own ignorance. What is our debt limit's 23 million change? What are we currently at on our debt? That would count against that debt.
I don't want to misquote it. So we do have two components to our debt. So we have like the biggest chunk is the government center portion, which the province backs, so it doesn't get
Count.
so
It gets a
doesn't
portion
count in our
right?
overall thing. I believe we have an outstanding debt of around 8 million, 8 to 11.
Okay, and my other question was, in here, we're also stating that we might do some temporary borrowing to get us on that bridge. Why would we go out to get that bridge financing? Is there a way that we could utilize our current reserves or unrestricted reserves in order to carry us through till we get that bridge finance?
We
Get the
can
actual financing from the province?
we can definitely take a look depending on the cash flow and what we have there. This is just a little bit of a piece that could bring us over as well. So without
I just
exploring
wonder
all
for
the
some
options, we're just getting this kind of in
Cost saving piece
motion.
there, or is it negligible what the cost savings would be, I guess?
Depending on what we I guess we'll have to further explore that possibility on the interim borrowing against ourselves. The process, regardless whether we borrow ourselves or borrow from a bank, we still have to pass the borrow interim.
Oh, yeah, I understand
Yeah.
that. I was just wondering about that one little piece we had written in there where we're gonna do a second borrow to get us through.
Yeah, and that will come back to council. So the details as to that, as to what, and the recommendations of administration as
That'd
to,
be on the next
do we
one.
have enough, do we have an internal
Okay,
cash flow, or do we not, or is it better for us to just to do bridge financing essentially for a period of a couple months? We'll bring that all back.
This is less strategy and more getting the policy and procedure in
Correct.
place, correct?
Yeah, we're talking about the overall
Curious,
borrowing
making sure
bylaw.
that I
That's correct.
understood. Counselor Moellem,
I'm gonna make the motion to move that council gives first reading to borrowing bylaw number 21-2023.
all right, there's a motion on the floor. Do we have any further discussion? Okay, I will call to question those in favor. And that is carried.
All right, for borrowing bylaw 22-2023, again, all of the information is exactly the same, other than for the second borrowing bylaw, the proposed amount that we borrow for parcel 2 is $120,000.
Counselor Adams,
I move that council gives borrowing bylaw 22-2023 first reading.
any further discussion? Call to question those in favor. And that is carried. Thank you, Roland. I had to do the 3. Okay, we have a procedural bylaw.
All right,
Jeff.
that's up for me. So good evening. So the purpose of this report is to update the town of Slave Lake's procedural bylaw. Currently, the town of Slave Lake has 2 current procedural bylaws, number 28/2016 and bylaw 11-2020. Procedural bylaw 28-2016 outlines procedures and the transaction of business by the municipal council, while bylaw 11-2020 is an amendment to include electronic means for meetings, which was established during the COVID-19 regulations. Administration is presenting procedural bylaw 23-2023, which includes contents from both the bylaws that I referred to previously. This bylaw also includes up-to-date practices on procedure outlines and the transaction of business by a municipal council. You have 2 options before you as council. One is to pass the proposed procedural bylaw 23-2023, or number 2, to maintain the status quo with 28/2016 and 11-2020 in effect. I will make one friendly amendment to the procedural bylaw of an error that we caught late in the process. If you refer to 6.11, there's a section as it relates there to an updated procedure as it relates to the deputy mayor and acting mayor. Specifically, I'd make a friendly amendment to add the following. So the mayor and council shall nominate and elect at an annual organizational meeting or regular meeting of council as dictated by council from its members a deputy mayor for a 12-month term or such longer periods as council may determine. So just providing the opportunity to implement that process or make change to that process outside of the organizational meeting, which only happens once a year.
Counselor Adams,
So just so I understand, the purpose of that would be if that this never happens, but if someone were to step down from council who was deputy mayor, you wouldn't have to wait a year in order to re-elect somebody.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it also provides, there's a direction from council to change the process to implement this stage. But as you're aware, we've already passed and had our organizational meeting. So this would allow this council the opportunity to utilize a new or a provision or a change to our organizational bylaw, procedurals bylaw now, or at a future meeting to come to that decision. So as opposed to waiting till October 2024 to implement this change.
as Counselor Allison mentioned, though, it does also provide the flexibility should there, in the year of our elections, be a change to people on council.
That's correct. Yep. It just provides a little bit of flex. I mean, normal practice would be typically would be that this would be an issue that's addressed at your organizational meetings, but
This allows the
the
provision. to
amendment
be-
just adds, we'll add the amendment after the fact, but just allows a what if sort of scenario.
Counselor Ferguson,
Section 11.1.1.4.
boy,
I believe there's a typo there. It talks about faux, and I'm guessing the correct word that was intended to be used was for
11.1.1.4,
yeah.
already followed the question.
Oh, yeah. See,
Good catch.
thank you. We'll make that amendment.
Counselor Hughes.
Okay, so when we're reading these, we're gonna say as amended for,
That's correct.
Right?
Yep.
okay, well, with that, I'll kick this thing off. I move to give procedural bylaw number 23-2023 first reading as amended.
Any further discussion? Call to put, oh, Counselor Ferguson.
So I did want to draw council's attention to section 8.3.4.
Okay,
Let us get there.
So I'll move there at the same time.
did you see? Okay,
So specifically that speaks to the section where councillors can participate in meetings via teleconferencing or electronic means. Granted, there's cases today like where Councillor Gramlich is attending electronically where it has a time and its place, and I'm happy for it. But this whole section was brought in because of COVID for a limited time. So personally, I don't believe it's necessary anymore. While virtual meetings may have had their place, I'm a believer that nothing replaces the dialogue and discussion that an in-person meeting brings. We have a good group here. And, you know, part of the decisions we make here is about the future cohesiveness of future councils and to possibly limit any future potential problems. So with this bylaw, I could hypothetically not attend another council meeting for the rest of my term, and there'd be nothing council could do about it. And so based off of that, I would prefer to see that section removed.
I'm wondering if there's an amendment that could be made to the section. Either limiting the number so that you do have the ability to have an emergency use such as this. Which emergency is not really the technical word, but I understand where you're coming from. I wouldn't also want to have an all virtual meeting because you can't replicate the same
No.
things that you can in person. I would like to somehow preserve the ability to have the odd electronic.
Yeah, and if it's the exception, not the norm, I don't have a problem with that. I just don't want someone to check out, like I'm just gonna do everything from the comfort of my couch and my pajamas for the next 4 years.
I don't
I
disagree.
I don't believe that's an appropriate use of this section.
Counselor Adams.
Well, there is a section in there that states quorum still has to be able to be maintained by the in-present group.
yeah, I was just. gonna say that.
So the fact that someone, maybe we need to have something in there where it does limit the number of remote meetings you have. But there are instances where I find this day and age, reality is this is an acceptable means. And Sean's not being very lippy tonight, but he could be.
It's fine with that, so.
So, and he's there, we see facial expressions, we can have that interaction rather than try and do it over a phone. So I still feel this has a valid place in here, but I do understand your concerns. I recognize that, and I don't know if we can task administration to come up with a way that would limit that number or limit when that's usable or what. I get where you're coming from, though.
Counselor Gramlich, you have to unmute. There you go.
Can you just add in, like?
We can't
with
hear
a
you.
Maximum, with a maximum. of-
Hold on. Stop talking for 1 moment. We can't hear you.
Okay, so. Point here.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess while you guys are figuring that out, I'll just make a point here real quick. I mean, I guess how do you limit the possible rogue counselor that just says, I'm not going to be engaged and sit at home for the next 4 years? And that's my concern.
I would,
Like what Councillor Gramlich is doing today, I have no issue with that.
Yeah.
See if he can speak.
Hello?
Speak.
Hello?
please. Oh, we just have to.
Oh, he's real quiet.
1 sec.
Yo, hello.
There we go.
Go ahead.
Hey, all I was gonna say was, why don't we just add like a limit of a maximum of 2 meetings in a row or 3 meetings or whatever it is, right? And I don't think anyone ever, none of this group wants to do one of these, I'll tell you that much right now. But maybe there's someone who's ill or they are on an extended
Mhm.
work trip or something, so you could have 2 meetings in a row or something. Is there some sort of amendment to that
I
that
think
you
you
guys
could,
want to play with?
yeah, I think you could do something regarding like 2 meetings row up to a maximum of X number of.
Or
meetings
yeah,
per
up to 3 consecutive meetings where you have joined via, online platform or whatever is kind of the max or something like
Yeah,
that, right?
I think I kind of like the 2 and up to a max of like, pick a number a year. Counselor Adams.
Well,
Thank you.
to argue on the other end of that, I guess, just for the sake of it. I could come here and I know you guys would like this, but don't participate. So what's the difference between me being online and sitting there and not participating, or coming here and sitting here and having a nap?
I'm gonna counterpoint that. I will let you know that running a meeting with that and this is much more challenging. So while this is fantastic as not the norm, like
Mhm.
as the occasion, so that we can get all our counselors here, because I do believe all of us together are better than when we have parts of the group missing. So I would and it's very challenging to run that just because it's a bunch of different directions and I always miss things anyway. So I would like to see it. I think it should be no more than 2 meetings in a row digitally, and up to a max of like 6 a year or something like that.
And I would concur. That's a box that I could live in.
Oh, that's a box you
Okay.
could live in? Cause that, it just encourages that. Counselor
Thumbs up
Gramlich
from
is
Sean.
also providing a thumbs up to that. Okay, counterpoint, Steve.
Repeat the amendment that you're.
Well, we're in discussion.
I just was wondering actually on process here, is this something that's significant enough that we can't amend and approve on this one? Or is this something that needs to go back to you to rewrite and bring it again?
No, I think it's simple enough that we can add that clause in that
So,
section.
so the
or
clause would
section.
be that the digital meetings can only be up to 2 consecutively for regular meetings of council,
Mhm.
up to a maximum of 6
In a year?
per year,
Calendar year.
per calendar year. Or you can do it from org meeting to org meeting if that's the year that it runs to.
I think we can make that amendment. The other note I was gonna make is that COVID restrictions brought these changes through the MGA that allowed municipalities like ours to add it. And the MGA, the province has decided to keep those provisions in
The MGA.
as a tool for councils and municipalities. So
And I would just state with that, 8.3.1 still gives us the complete ability to do whole meetings by electronic means if necessary, whether there be, God forbid, a resurgence of COVID or something.
So what we've got is a spelling amendment, and amendment to the fact that council can choose outside of an organizational meeting, the role of deputy mayor, should there be a need to. And we've also got the amendment for the limitations on the electronic means of communication. And those are the 3 amendments that we have discussed here. So there is a motion on the floor as amended that is going to include that 3rd amendment to the electronic means. So at this point, I'll ask if there's any further discussion on the motion on the floor. As I see none, I will call to question those in favor. And that is carried. Scroll back up. Counselor Ferguson,
I move to give procedural bylaw number 23, 2023 second reading as amended.
any further discussion? Call to question those in favor. And that is carried. Counselor Adams,
Move to give unanimous consent to procedural bylaw 23-2023 for 3rd reading.
as amended.
As amended.
Any further discussion? And call to question those in favor. And that is carried. Counselor Moallem, would you like to? Thank you.
I'll move to give procedural bylaw number 23-2023 third reading as amended.
Any further discussion? Call to question those in favor. And that is carried. Okay, next up, we have question period. Counselor Moallem.
I don't know if we ever talked about this, but I see some other communities that have something. But I wanted to look at potentially, and I can't remember if this is the place where it's supposed to go, but something like a youth advisory committee of some sort. So to have something either within the schools or, but basically, so you get a youth perspective in your community that can come even as a delegation and kind of keep us updated on how we're doing with the youth in town.
Yeah, you could raise that question here. I mean, obviously, we don't have one. It's something we could look at if that's council's, indication. I guess you would have to develop some sort of terms of reference as to what, what are you looking for feedback on? Is there a specific purpose or a specific section of town bylaws? Are you looking at it from a community recreation sort of perspective? Are you wanting to know what the youth think about the quality of our roads and pothole fixes? And then, we would potentially bring back, I guess, a proposal as to what that may look like, and we
Yeah,
can see if there's an interest for that.
I know Drayton Valleys, I just saw that that they had one and they've been running it for a little while. And it seems to be, it's engaging a lot of youth. And the way I see it as well is it's a really good way to build leadership within the youth as well. So, ultimately, we're growing our leaders. They're coming, they're doing public speaking, they're engaging other students as well. But they're also they're informing us with stuff on recreation. It could be maybe a vision of what they would like to see as well. So I think it just if more than anything, it's a form of leadership, and then hopefully one day they find themselves up here one day as well as a counselor.
Counselor Adams.
I've seen these in the past, but anytime I've seen them, they've been operated by a school or an outside group. I haven't seen them operated by the town. That being said, I'm not sure how Drayton does theirs or how that's set up. I'd be more than happy to support something where we're reaching out to our senior schools to see if they're interested in getting involved in some sort of community piece or political piece to try and expand that. And I would even entertain a possible minor sponsorship with that from town to a school to try and encourage that piece to go forward. I'm not sure what it would look like, but I'd be willing to discuss it and flesh something like that out. I kind of like the idea.
There is some political activity that the schools are on board with. I actually have received 3 emails today from the grade 5 classroom regarding about their individual concerns in the community. One I forwarded to council, and I just received a second this afternoon. So I think that's actually pretty great. So it's nice to see that we're having some, after my visits to the schools and to these classrooms, have some reach out from the students regarding, and I did forward it to administration and they responded back. So we are getting some emails. And so I do think there is an appetite there for that.
So what I would suggest then, Councillor, is to make a motion, if you would like administration to look or to explore further in the possibility and what that may look like, or what those potential terms of reference may be, and we will bring it back to a future committee of the whole meeting for discussion and deliberation.
I will make that motion.
Counselor.
I just wanted to confirm the motion on the floor. Just can you please repeat it?
You want to make the motion?
Your motion.
To advise administration to come up with terms of reference for a potential youth advisory committee, and bring it back to council.
Counselor Adams.
I'd almost like us to, we need to see if we can even move ahead with this. If there's going to be participation from whatever bodies we want to use, and identify what that would look like. I don't know if that's necessary to the point of developing terms of reference yet, when we don't even know if there's going to be an interest with it.
I think it'll provide us some ability to, it would be difficult. If there's going to be in a stage where we're approaching youth, whatever, however that may look like, and saying, hey, we'd like you to come and talk, but we don't know what we want you to talk about.
I understand that, but I'm more along the lines, if the Catholic school, High Prairie School Division, or whichever body wants to do something, if we go through this effort and say we're going to do this here, and they're going, yeah, no. So then we've wasted our time. I'd like us to at least reach out or something and see if there's an interest. And if there is, then to go down that path. I don't know,
doesn't, you
whichever
know,
you figure.
I have seen too where, I mean, I guess it depends how you define youth. Are you defining youth as high school age or school age still children? Or are you defining youth as 21 and under?
I think the
Which
one I
wouldn't
saw,
necessarily include schools.
yeah, the one I've seen was 14 to 21.
Right? So it may or may not be hinging upon a school division participating or not participating necessarily. I guess hence the reason why we might be looking for we'd like to narrow down maybe the focus and where we think we're looking for feedback on, or if we're just looking to create a mechanism for communication.
Okay, do you want to continue with? the-
I think it's twofold. It's getting that involvement in this process and to get that interest in the political life and what's mattering to the community and what's important, but it's also about making partnerships and engaging. I don't know if I'm necessarily in favor of the town spearheading this and pulling all this together and getting this group in. I'm not too sure if we have the capacity or the drive for that necessarily right off the bat. If it's going to be something that's supporting another group, to have them come in, to have them have a say, and to help foster that growth within the school atmosphere, I'd be almost more for it than the other way around. But that's my opinion. I don't know what you guys are thinking.
Yeah, no, I would agree with Counselor Adams' assessment on that. I think I would be looking more for the school divisions to want to participate than us necessarily taking the lead role, but of course, providing resourcing and opportunity and kind of helping to foster that growth and development for our youth. 100%. I think that's a very important thing that we should be doing. So.
I like the idea, but I do think that it needs to stretch outside of school as well, those school ages. So I think for it to be representative, for it to be really something that we can use, I think it has to go up to about 21 years of age approximately. And I mean, then you can kind of even see some of the young professionals that are coming to Slave Lake as well, or the students that have graduated and are coming back here, and you get that end of it too, what they're looking for, how we're doing, to keep a 21-year-old nurse in town here or whatever.
Counselor Adams.
I don't think I'm prepared to fund and administer a second council that the town has to deal with beyond what we're doing with this council at this time. I think there's a place for the 21-year-old to make the vote. There's a place for the 21-year-old to come in and make a statement that's outside of that group. It's maybe we look at that as a stage step out from something, or we can work into that. But at this point, if that's what we're after, then I honestly think that I'd be against that, or at least want to postpone it to a budget discussion.
Yeah, I'm more of the view of keeping it under the voting age, because there is the mechanism to be involved in politics. I do understand there's a role for our young entrepreneurs, but I do also think there's mechanisms such as the Chamber of Commerce and a variety of organizations that already support them. So if we're looking at fostering a political involvement in youth that are unable to exercise their right to vote in a democratic way, I would probably be on the view of the under voting age. I'm not sure where we're at here. Counselor Moallem, I'll give you liberty here to adjust your motion.
I mean, we can reread the motion
That'd be
to
helpful.
the task administration to investigate possible terms of reference for a youth advisory committee. I think it's still generic enough that it can include potential age ranges and everything else that.
Okay.
It's already on the table.
Okay, there's a motion that we've heard repeated that's on the floor. Is there any further discussion? All right, I will call the question. Those in favor? And that is carried. Okay, I saw a hand up in the corner. And That's moderately ridiculous. Okay, is there anything else for question period? Counselor Ferguson?
Just a question for our CAO here. So for the lights for the highway entrance sign on Highway 2 on the west side of town, where are we at for getting those plugged in and a solution there?
Yeah, I mean, the project manager is still dealing with that. I mean, there's some complications in terms of solutions there as it relates to power. There was a previous line or connection in there that was taken out at some point in time when the upgrade or the intersection was upgraded. So we're exploring whether a solar power sort of solution or coming up with an arrangement or an agreement with ATCO or something along those lines. So it still is on the active list to be done or to be addressed by the project manager. I don't believe a solution has come forward yet on it. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further questions from council for administration? Okay, as I see none, we'll move forward into correspondence.
So I believe you only have one piece of correspondence here tonight. So before you have a letter received by the town dated October 20th, 2023. It is from the Dragonfly Center. And it's basically, I'll leave, I'm pretty sure you probably all would have reviewed the request, but essentially they're asking the town to support an initiative in May, I believe, during the month of May as it relates to flags and light on Main Street and flags on light poles during the month of May.
Counselor Adams.
Would this be something we just direct them to apply according to our policies?
Yeah, I don't believe that they're actually asking for anything other than support in this case. I don't
Well,
think
they were asking for banners, flags and lighting.
at their cost
Fair enough, but it'd be on our
property. That's
property,
correct. Yeah. I can't say that this honestly fits within anything. I mean, we have a flag raising policy and we have a light policy and acknowledgement of special days or weeks or commemorative issues. I mean, I guess to some extent that might fall under that. But in terms of authorizing them to be able to do this, it's kind of a one-off. I don't think we really have a policy that covers what they're asking here specifically to do, unless you're aware of something and I'm not.
Well, then just so that I understand, if they want to put the banners on the light poles, they can just go do that and they don't have to ask us.
No, that's why they are asking us, which is why it's before you at council.
So then
tonight.
why wouldn't that be part of that policy that we have, or should be part of that policy then if it's?
Yeah, and it could be something that we amend. I honestly don't think that it was something that we have a lot of requests for someone to.
Well,
put
no,
something
we
in our
just
policy.
got those now.
Yeah.
Like, they're new.
Yeah.
The bars coming out.
So we can add that to, I mean, we can add that to the policy, but it essentially will result in the same letter coming back to council with the same request before you.
Fair
So
enough.
I can
but
do that.
I still think we should then
And we
modify our policy to cover what we
can
should
amend,
cover.
yeah, and we can definitely make an amendment to that policy. We can make a
Okay.
separate motion or a motion relating from this letter to modify the policy accordingly.
Okay, make a motion to review and modify the policy, whatever it's called. I can't remember what the
For the
whole.
flag
name is.
banners. Flag
I know what,
You know which one I'm talking
yeah,
about,
the
obviously,
flag and commemorative
Uh,
lighting, yeah,
The flag,
And bring it-
lighting and flag.
and bring it back to council with recommendations.
absolutely.
Okay.
Would you like to table this request then until the policy's been updated, or would you like to deal with it today?
I think we deal with the motion on the floor first,
Okay, there's a
then we
motion.
can do that.
Okay, we'll start with the motion on the floor. Is there any further discussion on Steve's motion? Okay, call to question those in favor. And that is carried. All right, would her administration?
I'm kind of in favor of this. I don't know if it's something is this keeping it up for a month or giving that approval for a month? But like, is that what they're asking? Or is it because that's kind of beyond what we normally do for anybody.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, typically and what I would recommend to council is our kind of time frame for any sort of recognition usually is focused to a day at the max, I would say a week, if possible. But that sometimes causes problems. As you see, sometimes there's multiple things that are popping up in a week. And so I would say if you're entertaining this request, although they may have asked for one thing, you can authorize something less that meets your requirements. So I think you would be well within the general policy itself to to support the initiative and to indicate for a period of a week, if that's what you so choose, would be consistent with other requests that have been brought before council. Or you can table this until the policy comes back, if you so wish.
Counselor Ferguson,
And I'd prefer what our CAO just mentioned.
the week.
Is, well, no, is to look at reviewing it once the policy comes back and you're dealing with it then, and then it's adherent to our policy, whatever we decide.
What kind of timeline are you thinking? January, February, March?
There is a strong chance that this policy will be back before you next week.
So I think that the
All right.
CAO's recommendation is, can we table this until that
You absolutely
policy
can.
comes back, please?
Yeah, we can bring it back to the May or to the November.
A motion to table it, or?
We'll need a motion.
Okay, I will make the motion to table this response to the letter until
November 14th, council.
November,
Committee of the
until the next meeting when the policy is brought back. Any further discussion? Call to question, those in favor? And that is carried. Okay. We will move on to State of the Lake. Do any counselors have anything for State of the Lake? Counselor Hughes.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to the Northern Haven Support Society. I'm sure people have noticed the purple ribbons and the campaign that they have launched throughout our community. So November is Prevention of Family Violence Month in Alberta. And so Northern Haven Support Study has taken this opportunity to kind of have a community-wide campaign to shed some light on that. And so you'll notice a couple different restaurants, retail stores are kind of doing some purple themed things in support of them. They also held a event last Thursday, which I was able to attend, and they highlighted a lot of the programming that they do offer in the community. And it was really, really great. They actually offer a lot of things, and we're very lucky to have them. So I just wanted to say thanks for the great work they do and point out the purple campaign for the month of November.
Any Counselor Moallem?
I would like to welcome Ham Barlock. I hope I'm saying that right, to Slave Lake. Ham is the new site manager of the Slave Lake Hospital. Ham comes from lower mainland BC and has a wealth of experience in various positions. Pam has been working in the position for 3 weeks now. If you see her, please ensure she gets a warm welcome to our community.
Fantastic. Okay, I will continue. I guess 2023 is going to be the year of elections in our region. We are excited that the by-election candidate nominations have come through. So we have 3 candidates for the councillor seat. We have Andrew Achoba, Craig Hudson, and Ronnie Lucan. So the election will be, it's November 28th. Am I correct? Yes, I'm seeing the nods from administration. Thank you. The official election day is November 28th. There will be a couple of opportunities before that for advanced voting. We look forward to see these candidates come forth with their campaigning. And once again, have signs down our main street. So that will be very festive. So looking forward to that. I would also like to highlight that we do have a Remembrance Day ceremony at 10:55 at the Cenotaph outside the Slave Lake Legion. And I just wanted to thank our staff for all of their hard work with regards to getting our temporary shelter open. The shelter is at the like I had mentioned before, temporary site at the fire hall, and it is open 24/7. So I'm very proud of our staff for pulling that together in a very short period of time. There's a significant amount of work that goes into getting that up and running. And we look forward to our community having this essential service. And with that, Counselor Hughes,
Motion to adjourn.
any further discussion? Call to question, those in favor? And that is carried.
I like your toque, Brady.